When we look up at the balcony of Buckingham Palace, we see a glittering mirage. We see a family united by blood, bound by duty, and crowned in the most magnificent diamonds on earth. We believe that these jewels are symbols of love and continuity. But the truth is far darker. Behind the closed doors of the royal vault, these diamonds are not symbols of love. They are weapons. They are the exact reason why this family is currently tearing itself apart. For centuries, the Windsor inheritance has been a battlefield of jealousy, spite, and explosive greed. The jewels hidden in the dark have turned brother against brother. They have driven new brides to scream at palace staff. They have caused kings to steal from their own country. And they have been used by reigning queens as tools of brutal, calculated revenge. Today, we are going to open the most toxic files in the royal archives. We are going to look at the specific, documented pieces of jewelry that didn't just cause arguments. They shattered the royal family beyond repair. Welcome to the true cost of the crown. These are the jewels that broke the Windsors. And the destruction begins with a wedding, an emerald, and a tantrum that forever altered the history of the British monarchy. Chapter 1. Tiara Gate. The crown that broke Harry and Meghan. It is widely believed that the catastrophic rift between Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, and the rest of the royal family began slowly, deteriorating over years of media pressure. But royal insiders know the truth. The foundation of the family actually cracked on a very specific day, in a very specific room, over a very specific piece of jewelry. This is the scandal known behind palace walls as Tiara Gate. The year was 2018. Meghan Markle was preparing for her highly anticipated wedding to Prince Harry. As is tradition, the late Queen Elizabeth II invited Meghan to Buckingham Palace to select a tiara from the royal vault for her wedding day. It was supposed to be a polite, symbolic gesture, but it quickly escalated into a nightmare. According to multiple deeply sourced royal biographies, Meghan arrived with her heart set on one particular piece, the Greville Emerald Kokoshnik tiara. To understand why Meghan wanted it, you have to look at it. It is arguably the most spectacular, fashion-forward tiara in the entire collection. Created by Boucheron in 1919, it is a wall of platinum and diamonds in the Russian style, anchored by a staggering 93-carat central emerald. It is bold, it is incredibly valuable, and it looks like Hollywood royalty. It was the perfect crown for an American actress. Meghan wanted the emeralds. But the palace courtiers and the queen herself said no. The official reason given for the refusal was diplomatic sensitivity. The tiara's origins were murky. It was rumored that the massive emeralds might have been acquired under questionable circumstances during the Russian Revolution. The palace argued that it was too risky to wear a potentially controversial stone to a globally televised event. But there was another, unspoken reason. The Emerald Kokoshnik was a major, historic piece from the Greville bequest, fiercely protected by the Queen. It was not a starter tiara. Handing a $10 million masterpiece to a new bride entering the family was seen as a breach of unwritten hierarchy. When Meghan was told she could not have the emeralds, the situation exploded. Prince Harry allegedly became furious. According to reports that leaked to the British press, Harry lost his temper with the royal staff, famously shouting, "What Meghan wants, Meghan gets." It was a catastrophic miscalculation of power. You do not shout at the Queen's staff, and you certainly do not make demands of the sovereign's jewelry box. When the Queen was informed of Harry's outburst, she summoned her grandson for a private, chilling meeting. According to the royal biographer Robert Jobson, the Queen firmly put Harry in his place.
She reportedly told him in no uncertain terms, Meghan cannot have whatever she wants.
She gets what tiara she's given by me. The Queen ultimately selected Queen Mary's diamond bandeau for Meghan. It is a beautiful, sleek Art Deco piece, but it has no colored stones. It is relatively modest. It was a firm, glittering no to Meghan's demands for the emeralds. Meghan wore the diamond bandeau on her wedding day. She smiled for the cameras, but the damage was done. The argument over the tiara exposed a fundamental clash of cultures. Meghan and Harry saw the royal jewels as a right. The Queen saw them as a privilege to be earned. The resentment planted that day grew into the toxic narrative of unsupportive family members that eventually led to Megxit. But the story of the emerald Kokoshnik tiara has a final, devastating twist. If denying Meghan the tiara was the initial blow, what the Queen did next was an absolute masterclass in silent royal revenge. 6 months after Harry and Meghan's wedding, Princess Eugenie, the Queen's granddaughter by blood, was married at St. George's Chapel. And when Eugenie stepped out of the car, the world gasped. Sitting on her head, blazing in the sunlight, was the exact same 93-carat Greville Emerald Kokoshnik tiara. The message was deafening. The Queen had told Meghan the tiara was unavailable. Then, just months later, she placed it on the head of a blood princess. It was a visual slap in the face. It proved to Harry and Meghan that the issue wasn't the origin of the emeralds. The issue was them. The Queen used that tiara to draw a brutal line in the sand between those born royal and those who marry in. The Greville Emerald didn't just sparkle that year, it drew blood. It shattered the illusion of a happy, unified family and set the stage for the most explosive royal exit in modern history. But if a tiara started a war between Meghan and the Queen, our next piece of jewelry started a war between two brothers. It is the most romanticized ring in the world, but behind closed doors, it is the physical symbol of a broken bond. Next, we look at the ring that divided William and Harry forever. There is a fundamental truth in the psychology of inheritance. Nothing destroys sibling loyalty faster than a piece of their mother's jewelry. When Diana, Princess of Wales, died in 1997, the world mourned a global icon. But behind the gates of Kensington Palace, 2 young boys were mourning their mother. And as the legal machinery of the royal estate began to process Diana's belongings, the seeds of a future conflict were quietly planted. The object at the center of this impending disaster was a jewel that is entirely unmatched in its emotional, historical, and tabloid value. It is Diana's sapphire engagement ring. This ring, a massive 12-carat oval Ceylon sapphire surrounded by 14 solitaire diamonds, was not just an accessory. It was the physical embodiment of Diana. It was the ring she chose from a Gerard catalog, breaking royal protocol because it wasn't custom-made. It was the ring she continued to wear, even as her marriage to Prince Charles publicly disintegrated. It was her talisman. In the aftermath of her death, the royal collection protocols dictated that Diana's personal jewelry be held in trust for Princes William and Harry. According to multiple royal insiders, and later confirmed by Princess Diana's former butler, Paul Burrell, the young princes were allowed to walk through their mother's apartments and choose a keepsake. Prince William, the older brother and the heir to the throne, reportedly chose Diana's gold Cartier Tank Française watch. He wanted a piece that felt personal, something she wore every day. Prince Harry, the younger, more emotional Spare, chose the sapphire engagement ring. He remembered holding his mother's hand as a small boy and feeling the heavy, cold stone against his fingers. It was a deeply sentimental choice. For over a decade, the brothers honored this division. The ring belonged to Harry, the watch belonged to William. But in 2010, the narrative shifted and a massive sacrifice was made.
one that Harry would eventually come to deeply resent. Prince William was preparing to propose to Catherine Middleton. He wanted to give her something extraordinary, something that ensured his mother would be present on his wedding day. But William didn't have the ring. Harry did.
In what was heavily publicized at the time as a beautiful act of brotherly love, Harry offered to give the sapphire ring to William. According to the legend propagated by the palace, Harry said, "Wouldn't it be fitting if she had Mummy's ring? Then one day that ring will be seated on the throne of England." William accepted the ring. He proposed to Catherine in Kenya. And on November 16th, 2010, Catherine stood before the cameras at St. James's Palace, the 12-carat sapphire blazing on her finger. At the time, it seemed like a triumph of family unity. But in reality, it created an insurmountable imbalance of power. Fast forward to 2017. Prince Harry meets Meghan Markle. He falls in love. He decides to propose. But when Harry goes to his vault to find an engagement ring for his American actress, the stark, humiliating reality hits him. He has already given away the ultimate prize. He gave away the ultimate symbol of his mother, and he gave it to the wife of the brother he is increasingly coming to resent. Harry was forced to commission a new ring for Meghan. He used a central diamond from Botswana, flanked by 2 smaller diamonds taken from Diana's private collection. It is a beautiful ring, but it is not the ring. When Meghan and Harry stepped out for their engagement photos, the visual comparison was brutal and unavoidable. Catherine had the 12-carat sapphire, the iconic, untouchable piece of history. Meghan and Harry had the one-of-a-kind sapphire, but still, it was just another ring. Meghan had a composite ring, a Frankenstein jewel made of leftover stones. The difference in the rings mirrored the difference in their status. Catherine was the future queen. Meghan was the wife of the spare. Catherine had the crown jewel. Meghan had the consolation prize. As relations between the Sussexes and the Cambridges rapidly deteriorated, this ring became a silent, glittering elephant in the room. Meghan, acutely aware of PR and optics, knew that she could never visually compete with Catherine as long as Catherine was wearing Diana's sapphire. Every time Catherine raised her left hand, it was a reminder to Harry and Meghan of what they didn't have and what Harry had given away. In his memoir, Spare, Harry attempted to rewrite this history, claiming that the story of him offering the ring to William was absolute rubbish and a palace invention. He claimed William had the ring all along. But regardless of who originally took the ring from the Kensington Palace vault in 1997, the psychological damage is done. The sapphire ring is no longer just a beautiful piece of jewelry. It is the physical manifestation of the rift between the two brothers. It is the symbol of Harry's ultimate loss and William's ultimate victory. Every time Catherine wears it, it reinforces the hierarchy that drove Harry out of the country. A single blue stone managed to sever a brotherhood that was once thought to be unbreakable. But the princes are not the first royals to let a woman and her jewels tear a family apart. 80 years before Megxit, an even greater scandal rocked the monarchy. A king gave up his throne for an American divorcee, and as he walked out the door, he committed a crime against the royal vault that his mother never forgave. Next, we look at the Thief King and the stolen emeralds that almost destroyed the crown. If Prince Harry's exit from the royal family felt like an earthquake, it was only because the public had forgotten the tsunami of 1936. When King Edward VIII abdicated the throne to marry the American, twice-divorced Wallis Simpson, he didn't just break the constitutional rules of the British Empire. He broke the family. He humiliated his mother, Queen Mary, and he forced his stuttering, terrified brother, George VI,
onto the throne. The hatred the royal family felt toward Wallis Simpson was absolute. The Queen Mother famously blamed the stress of the abdication for her husband's early death, referring to Wallis only as that woman. But there was a deeper, colder fury brewing in the heart of Queen Mary, a fury born not just of constitutional betrayal, but of outright theft. When Edward walked out of Buckingham Palace, he didn't leave empty-handed. He committed an act of royal larceny that the palace kept hidden for decades. This is the scandal of the Alexandra Emeralds.
To understand the crime, you must understand the distinction we discussed earlier: crown property versus personal property. When Queen Alexandra, the wife of King Edward VII, died in 1925, she left behind a staggering collection of personal jewelry. Among her most prized possessions was a collection of massive, flawless, cabochon-cut emeralds. Because they were her personal property, she bequeathed them directly to her son, King George V. King George, in turn, passed them to his eldest son, Edward, Prince of Wales. The understanding, the sacred, unwritten rule of the monarchy was that these emeralds were to be held in trust. They were to be given to the future Queen Consort of England. They belonged to the institution. But Edward was intoxicated by Wallis Simpson, and Wallis had a voracious, almost aggressive appetite for high-end jewelry. Before he even abdicated, Edward began quietly siphoning off the royal family's heritage to adorn his mistress. He took the priceless Alexandra emeralds, stones that should have eventually passed to his brother's wife, and he gave them to Wallis. But Wallis didn't just wear them, she desecrated them. Wallis had a very sleek, avant-garde sense of style. She looked at the heavy Victorian settings of Queen Alexandra's emeralds and found them utterly old-fashioned. So she took the royal family's historic heirlooms to Cartier in Paris and had them completely chopped up and remounted into modern, geometric Art Deco pieces. When Queen Mary realized what her son had done, her rage was icy and absolute. Her son had not only abandoned his duty and his country for an American divorcee, but he had taken the very jewels meant for the future queens of England and used them to buy her affection. And worse, Wallis had hacked apart the history of the Windsor family to suit her own vanity. The theft of the emeralds created a permanent, impenetrable wall between the Duke and Duchess of Windsor and the rest of the royal family. It proved to Queen Mary and the new King George VI that Edward could not be trusted with anything. After the abdication, the royal family enacted a brutal, punitive strategy. They stripped Edward of his royal allowance, forcing him into a humiliating financial settlement. They famously refused to grant Wallis the title of Her Royal Highness, a slight that enraged Edward until the day he died. But the war over the jewelry never ended. Wallis, knowing she was despised by the royal women in London, weaponized the stolen emeralds. She wore them constantly. She wore the massive Cartier emerald necklace to society galas in Paris and New York, ensuring that photographs of her dripping in Queen Alexandra stones were splashed across global magazines. Every time Queen Mary, or the Queen Mother, opened a newspaper and saw Wallis Simpson wearing the Alexandra emeralds, it was a visual taunt. It was Wallis saying, "You may have kept me out of your palaces, but I took your best diamonds with me." When Wallis Simpson died in 1986, long after Edward, her jewelry collection was auctioned off at Sotheby's in Geneva. The sale was a global sensation. But the royal family did not bid. They refused to buy back the stolen emeralds. The insult was too deep, the memory too bitter. The Alexandra emeralds were scattered to private collectors across the globe, lost to the British crown forever. The story of the Thief King taught the royal family a terrifying lesson.
Never underestimate the destructive power of a woman who marries into the firm, and never give her unsupervised access to the vault. It was a lesson the palace remembered decades later, when another highly controversial woman threatened to disrupt the delicate ecosystem of public affection. This woman didn't steal the jewels. She just wore them at the absolute worst possible time. Next, we look at the Camilla provocation and the brooch that nearly caused a public riot. If the theft of the Alexandra emeralds was an act of royal treason, our next scandal was a masterclass in psychological warfare. By 2006, Camilla Parker Bowles had finally married Prince Charles. The palace PR machine was working overtime to rehabilitate her image.
The strategy was clear. Keep a low profile, do not offend the public, and above all, do absolutely nothing to remind the world of Princess Diana. But Camilla, apparently, missed the memo. Or perhaps she simply wanted to test her new power. The explosion happened at the London premiere of the film The History Boys. Camilla stepped out of her car, and the British press instantly froze. Pinned to her collar was the Prince of Wales' feathers brooch. This jewel, a diamond crest of 3 ostrich feathers with a suspended emerald drop, was the official badge of the heir apparent. But in the public consciousness, it belonged to only one woman. When Diana was given this piece in 1981, she refused to wear it as a stuffy brooch. She hung it on a thick platinum chain and wore it as a sexy swinging pendant. It became one of her most famous rebellious looks. When Camilla stepped out wearing the exact same jewel, she hadn't just put it on. She had deliberately removed Diana's chain and reverted it back to a conservative brooch. It was a visual middle finger. By dismantling Diana's necklace, Camilla was symbolically erasing Diana's modernizing influence. She was marking her territory. She was telling the public, and more importantly, Princes William and Harry, I am the wife of the Prince of Wales now, and I will wear the badge my way. The reaction was catastrophic. The public viewed it as a gross insult to a dead woman. But inside the palace, the damage was even worse. William and Harry were reportedly furious. They were already struggling to accept the woman who had caused their mother so much pain. Seeing Camilla publicly flaunt a jewel so intimately tied to Diana's image was a bridge too far. It proved to the boys that their stepmother had zero sensitivity to their grief. The brooch incident severely damaged the fragile truce between Camilla and her stepsons. It forced the Queen to intervene and establish a hard, unspoken rule. Camilla was banned from ever touching a Diana jewel again. The provocation backfired, but the damage to the family's internal trust was permanent. And as the family fractured, with Harry fleeing to America and Camilla fighting for acceptance, Queen Elizabeth II realized she had to take drastic measures to secure the future of the monarchy. She needed to choose a winner, and she chose to use her heaviest diamonds to do it. Next, we look at the gatekeeper and how Catherine became the Queen's ultimate weapon. Queen Elizabeth II was not a woman who shouted. She didn't give angry interviews or leak stories to the press. When the Queen wanted to punish you, she simply locked the door. By 2019, the royal family was tearing itself apart. Prince Harry and Meghan were launching a global media war against the institution. Queen Camilla was still battling public resentment. The House of Windsor looked fragile, fractured, and vulnerable. The Queen needed to send a message of absolute stability. She needed to show the world and her own family exactly who was going to win this war. She used her diamonds to do it. The Queen initiated a brutal, highly calculated distribution of her most sacred jewels. She didn't split them equally. She didn't try to be fair. She took the absolute
best of the royal vault and handed it directly to the one woman who had never caused a scandal, never complained, and never broke protocol. She handed it to Catherine, the Princess of Wales. The Queen bypassed everyone else. She gave Catherine the Nizam of Hyderabad necklace, the most expensive piece in the private collection, worth nearly $85 million. She gave her the Japanese pearl choker, the ultimate symbol of royal mourning and continuity. She even gave her the Bahrain pearl earrings, the very jewels Elizabeth wore when she first became queen. This was not generosity, it was weaponized curation. By draping Catherine in the heaviest, most historically significant pieces of the Elizabethan era, the Queen was building a fortress around her. She was visually anointing Catherine as the supreme matriarch in waiting. But the true genius of this move was what it did to everyone else. By giving the ultimate treasures to Catherine, the Queen permanently blocked Meghan Markle from ever claiming a piece of the royal legacy. The visual disparity became insurmountable. Meghan had a composite engagement ring and a borrowed wedding tiara. Catherine was wearing the wealth of empires.
The Queen ensured that no matter how much noise the Sussexes made in America, they would always look like the exiled B team compared to the blinding, undeniable majesty of the Princess of Wales. And it kept Camilla in check too. While Camilla wears the heavy state tiaras of the consort, the intimately personal, beloved jewels of Queen Elizabeth belong to Catherine. The Queen turned Catherine into the gatekeeper. Catherine is now the living, breathing safe of the Windsor legacy. The jewels that tore the family apart, the sapphire ring that divided the brothers, the emeralds that sparked a shouting match, the pearls that signified survival, they all end with her. The history of the royal jewels is a history of greed, betrayal, and theft. They have broken marriages and ruined kings. But Queen Elizabeth made sure that the final chapter of her reign was one of absolute control. She left the diamonds to the woman who wouldn't be broken by them. A huge thank you to my sponsors. With your support, I'll be able to make even better and higher quality content.